Welcome to the Lifeletics Podcast, a brand dedicated to the growth of athletes as they transition to life after sports. My name is Megan Rutter, former D1 swimmer at Florida Atlantic University. My goal here is to make all athletes feel empowered to take on the sport of life. Here we are. Welcome to Lifeletics Podcast, everyone. My first guest here today is Laura Conoscenti. She is an absolute badass recruiter for Virgin Voyages. She has staffed an entire cruise ship. In case you're curious, that's how many people?
1,200 people.
1,200 people.
Yeah.
Wow. So you know a lot of the ins and outs in regards to hiring, recruiting, how to stand out on a resume, everything like that. She has traveled the world to find the best people. She's interviewed her ass off and coined herself the name LinkedIn Laura.
It's true.
How catchy is that? I love it. So she's truly learned the ins and outs of resume building. And as a former D1 student athlete, she understands the demanding schedule that we have while we're in sports. So welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Happy first episode.
Thanks. I'm excited. So hopefully we can provide some good value to everybody who listens. And so I guess, Laura, I just wanted to first pick your brain. You know, student athletes are pulled in all sorts of directions, right? Like wake up, wait, practice, class.
Yeah.
Practice again.
Mm-hmm.
Class, study hall, tutoring. All sorts of appointments. How are we supposed to get work experience now we're thrown out into the real world, and what does work experience mean?
It's a really good question. And I feel like most companies these days, you see like minimum requirement, right? 2 years. And I think it's challenging for student athletes because they're like, but how could I possibly get that experience while I had this, like, it was a full-time job, right? But it's really hard to put on paper. So I think that if you're not able to, because you're super, committed to your sport, and like I know swimming's super intense, right? You're swimming 50 weeks out of the year. Mm-hmm. You only get 2 weeks off. And in those sorts of situations, if you truly can't work because you're so dedicated to your sport and school, I think it's really important to market yourself on your resume with words that describe or things that describe that you've accomplished.
Right.
I think having the word student athlete on your resume alone is really helpful because a lot of recruiters or folks in talent acquisition know that you've probably worked your ass off if you've graduated and you were a student athlete.
For sure.
Yeah, but I think adding specific words, right? If you're a team captain, if you're involved in different athletic government things that the different schools have, right? If you're going to different conferences for the NCAA, right? Like you can add these different things that you've actually kind of like collected, right, along the way, and different like personality traits.
Right.
A lot of companies, I feel like on paper, they say they want all this experience, right? But at the end of the day, I think a lot of companies focus more on like culture, and they want some of the like personality traits a student athlete has, but they can't really put that on a piece of paper.
Right.
So it's like, I'm trying to say I want a student athlete, but I can't. I need to say I need to have experience.
So now as a student athlete, all the things that we go through and all the directions we're being pulled in, what are some of those words that you're mentioning to put on the resume that describe what those companies might be looking for without saying it?
Really good question. So I've seen it positioned a few different ways. Me personally, again, I being from athletics, I'm like, yes, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. But I think talking about leadership is really huge, right? Because in a working environment, you gain some sort of leadership, even if it's associate to associate, right? Mm-hmm. You normally take the lead. So talking about the different leadership that you might have had, whether it was in a small group within your bigger team, right? Or like you had in your school. But I think leadership is huge. I think that like reliability is now like important now more than ever with all the COVID things, right? Finding workforce, right?
Working from home. Everybody's got to be like, are you actually getting the work done? You can't lay eyes on it. So
Yes.
Okay.
So I think a lot of the positive traits that make you a great teammate and a great athlete, you can add in like your skills section. It could be even really interesting. Personally, I would like, as a talent acquisition person, is to see your sport and what you actually did for that sport, right? Practice 35 hours a week, right? Attended study hall for 8 hours a week. Again, really like listing it and owning it as a full-time job, because it is, and some people really can't get it outside of that. So then when that recruiter does see a resume, they're like, oh, they don't have work experience, but oh my gosh, they swam 30 hours a week or 50 miles, or, they had this many hours of study hall. Like, how did they possibly do it? Right. I think that time management is like really important to highlight, from your sport.
Okay. So definitely noting the amount of time that it took to just become a student athlete and just be a student athlete.
Yeah.
It's something that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
You can imagine that it's difficult, it's demanding. When you put everything on paper and you show somebody your schedule, it's completely different.
Yeah.
It's more than a full-time job. I remember after swimming, I felt like I had so much free time, which was, you would think, the complete opposite, right?
Yeah.
You go into adulthood, you think you're going to be more busy, but I didn't know what to do with my free time. So it's a weird experience.
Yeah.
The weirdest transition I think a lot of people can go through, from being on such a high of being in athletics. I didn't know what to do when I went from running around everywhere to sitting in an office chair.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing. You feel so sedentary, and
you feel like you should be somewhere.
Yeah.
You're like, I feel like I'm not doing something right. Like, where am I supposed to be? And I think it's because they always tell you like where to be, what to eat, what to dress like, right? Like, it's so planned out for you that when you do have that transition, it's like, I feel like I'm doing something wrong because you followed that like strict schedule for so long.
Well, and you're being told what to do, where to eat, what to dress like, right? And now it's almost like, okay, I have to make these decisions for myself.
Yeah.
And it's very easy for self-doubt to come into play.
Totally.
Making decisions for yourself is hard. What do I wear?
Yeah.
Where do I go?
I remember one of the hardest things I had a hard time with is like, I got my first job. They had like a really strong company culture, and they made you write your goals. And I'm like, this is easy. Like, I've got this. Cake, do that every year. Okay, like, check. And then I remember sitting at like my dining room table and being like, whoa, I have never made a goal for myself outside of swimming.
Wow.
And I had never really put much thought into it. Like, this is what I want to accomplish for a year, for professionally. Like, I had never thought it was all like swimming based or school based. But like that transition, I was like real life is here.
Yeah.
And no one prepares you for that.
And you no longer can make a goal for swimming anymore.
No, it's like, what is swimming? It's done. Like,
it's gone.
Your life is here now. It's crazy.
Definitely crazy. So now for the seniors that are current seniors, I know this is a crazy time with COVID.
Yeah.
And the whole world is basically changed at this point. What's our best course of action when creating that resume right now?
I think standing out. So I think, and I've been in the talent acquisition space and working for a really big brand. I've had people approach me in crazy ways, right? I've been at career fairs and like Virgin, their signature color is red. I've had people like dressed head to toe red, or like red lipsticks, like running in and like giving me an elevator pitch, like very memorable things. I've had a bottle of champagne sent to me with a resume on the label, right? All of these things were so memorable and so like gutsy, like it was like, wow, that was really impressive that you thought outside the box to actually, introduce yourself to me or share your information with me.
Yeah.
I've also received really cool like videos where people will pitch themselves to me. They'll like create a YouTube video or like a TikTok and they'll email it to me, right? Or they'll tweet at me and like different things like that to stand out that are really untraditional.
Okay.
But I think that's what really turns heads. Obviously, you have to navigate the line where you don't want it to be like creepy or weird. But I think that you can do it in a way that aligns with the brand, that you could really stand out.
Agreed. Now, my question to you would be, what's the craziest thing you've ever done to stand out to somebody?
Okay, this is embarrassing, but it's not. It's pretty cool. So I was working for a Lululemon brand. It was specifically for like young girl athletes. Really cool brand that they initiated. And I remember I had seen women come in that store and drop lots of money, and men drop lots of money on their children on children's Lululemon. And I never cared to ask them like what they do. But I remember helping this lady, and I'm like, she is so cool. And I asked her, I'm like, what do you do? She was asking me questions like, are you in school? Like, what's going on? And I told her I'm in school, that I'm thinking about maybe getting into HR, recruiting, that in the store was helping with recruiting. I liked it. And she told me she was the head of people for another Virgin company. And I remember being like starstruck, frozen, like I didn't even know what to say. And
the head of people.
Yes. So most HR in like progressive companies call themselves the people team.
Okay.
Instead of human resources, because you're like there for the people. You're not like, managing the people. It seems like a more friendly, approachable term.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it.
Yeah. So she said she was the head of people. I'm checking out. I all of a sudden can't speak because I'm starstruck. Growing up, I've flown Virgin Atlantic to visit all my family in the UK. Admired Richard Branson since I was a kid. I have no words. All of a sudden, I'm silent. And I remember checking her out, putting her name in her guest profile. And when she left the store, I remember telling my like shift leader, like, I have to run to the back right now. And I remember LinkedIn was new to me. So I didn't really know what I was doing on there. I remember going on.
What year was this?
2017.
2017. Right. Okay.
So like it was new to me. It was definitely like a thing, but like to me, it wasn't a platform I was on a lot. And I looked her up and I'm like, oh my God, it's real. And then I went back to the cash register and I remembered her name, obviously, looked up her profile, took her email address and sent her my resume and sent her a pitch. And she actually is kind of how I got my job today.
I love it. Now, how long after you met her at Aviva did you send her this pitch?
Oh my gosh, I think it was the night of. Like I met her and I sent her this long email on like why she should hire me. And the Virgin brand's very fun. And again, just having experience with that brand growing up as a kid and like following it, I knew I could be like a little bit cheeky. And I even said something in the email along the lines of like, I know you're the head of HR, probably shouldn't be doing this, but I thought I'd like shoot my shot. And she loved it. And I see her all the time, like at different events that we have, and we laugh about it. And she's like, that was the most memorable thing ever. And when it happens to me, I can't help but applaud people back because at the time when I met her, I was working retail. I had no experience. I mean, I had my retail experience, but that was my only experience. And I was like working part-time. Like it wasn't a career.
Right.
So it was a really cool way to like put myself out there and, show her like who I am.
Mm-hmm. You're bold. You're able to take those steps, right?
Yeah.
Put yourself out there, see what sticks.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for resume builders too is like being really selective of who you apply for. So you should never apply for like hundreds of jobs at a time. Mm-hmm. I think you should be really strategic about who you want to work for. And I think of getting a job a lot like dating. You don't want to get your first match, right? You're not going to marry your first boyfriend. Like you should really research a company, research their values, research their product, feel excited about it.
Yeah.
And then gear your resume or gear your pitch right towards that company or that thing. But I think a lot of job seekers these days are like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it sticks.
Right.
Instead of like applying for that like dream company where they know they can send a badass like cover letter, email, like, I don't know, Instagram reel, whatever it might be, YouTube video that will like make them turn their heads.
So just sum it all up, put it all in a resume, put them all in, words, dedication, leadership, reliability, time management, all of that. And even go into 30 hours a week here, 15 credit hours here. amazing.
Yeah, like show them how it was a full-time job.
Right. And then from there, make yourself stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's dating.
Yeah, it has to be a good match for both people.
Right.
It's not one-sided, especially in today's market. There's lots of opportunities, right? And a shortage of workers. This is the time where they can really be specific and figure out what's a good match for them.
Right.
And your first job's not going to be your dream job. It's not going to be your forever job. Mm-hmm. Like I always say, like each job that you get teaches you something and gets you closer to the thing that you love. Like you're always going to take something from it that you like and don't like. Mm-hmm. But you're not supposed to like love your first job.
Same way with dating.
Same way with dating.
You learn things you don't like.
Yes.
And that's a very important thing to learn.
Yes.
So what do you recommend in regards to taking that first step, getting the courage?
I think it's, even if you don't know what you want to do when you're, like, I think back to like when I was about to graduate, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I liked the hospitality industry. I knew I liked hiring people from this retail job, right? But I didn't really string it all together. Right. Like I just started collecting these things that I like, but I was like, these are the two things that I like. Let me try to get into that area. Like, let me start there. So I think before branding yourself, it's making sure that you understand, or at least have an idea of things that you like or would be interested to work for or represent. So then when you brand yourself, it's authentic. Right. Because if you brand yourself and you send someone a video, it's going to feel cheesy if you're not actually genuinely excited, mm-hmm. right? But if you send them because you're like so excited about cruising or hotels or hospitals, whatever it might be, right? They're going to feel it through the video. Right. So at least having a baseline understanding of your interests or maybe things that you've grown up around that have always caught your attention before like branding yourself.
Okay. So having a little bit of self-identity.
A little bit.
A little reflection.
Yeah.
Which can be difficult at times when your whole identity is your sport.
Yeah.
Right? So taking the time to sit down for a little bit, collect your thoughts, understand, hey, this is another thing that I also really like to do. Maybe this could be a good career.
Yeah.
Start thinking in that mindset to transition before the transition actually happens, because once it does, it can be difficult and it can catch people off guard.
Yeah. And I think talking with alumni too, right? Or people that you grew up in like your club sport, right? That are a couple years older than you. I did that a lot. I have a brother that's 4 years older than me. I would talk to his friends that were in professions, right? Like, what is that thing that you're doing? Like, never heard of recruiting. Tell me about it. You know, like I was always just curious and like asking people questions. So I think not being afraid to like use your alumni programs or folks that you swam with on your team, or people that you played sports with on your team, right? Because they're off doing things. You keep in touch. It's like, what is that about? So like get curious and see if that's something you could see yourself doing.
Yeah, always come from a place of curiosity. I think it can always help you land somewhere better.
Yeah. And again, you're not going to love it the first go around, but like you will find things that you love.
Right. Now, I know you specifically, as far as your transition out of college, athletics, yours was a little bit different. However, I think a lot of people have been in a similar situation where they don't stay all 4 years. And that third year comes around and you're pretty burnt out. And maybe it's not all it was hyped up to be. You and a new teammate aren't getting along, and it's just making the experience miserable for you. Now, deciding to leave after 3 years has its benefits and it has its downfalls.
Yeah.
I'd say one of the downfalls could be, you're leaving at the same time that everybody else is going to keep going. Mm-hmm. So everyone kept going and was still a swimmer and still was practicing and still doing all these things, and you're at home. All your roommates are going to do stuff and you're at home. How was that transition for you, and how did you find the best place to be and best place to put that time?
Yeah. It was definitely weird. Believe it or not, it went by really fast. So during that time for me, I started working at this Lululemon Aviva situation full time. So I kind of put all my energy that I had from swimming
Right.
into a job, which was really, it was good for me because if I didn't do that, I don't know what would have, like, would I have graduated college? Like, kind of like what you were saying, we're used to having such a busy schedule and
Right.
being all over the place, running from class to this to that. It really like filled up a lot of my time because I just kept taking on more hours and more responsibilities in the store. But it was definitely challenging at times because I'm like, I went into this college experience thinking I'm going to swim all 4 years. Done. Easy goal. Definitely happening, right? Check the box. And then when I was near the finish line, I'm like, this is really not good for me. Like this is not good for me. It's not benefiting the people around me. Like it was a really hard decision to stop. And it felt like a really big breakup because it had been a part of my life for so long. And it was really weird because I used to like introduce myself. Oh, I'm Laura. I'm a swimmer.
Right.
And I remember starting when I was my senior year, I started going to like yoga and cycling and like an Orange Theory. And it was so fun, weird, interesting, testing my athletic abilities in like different ways. But
Right.
it was such like a discovery thing. I don't think it really hit me because I was so busy that year. I think it really hit me my first year, like when all of my friends, roommates were like done and we were all in the real world and like they moved away and like I was no longer living with them. I think that's kind of when it all creeped in. Like,
Right.
whoa, I'm not a college student anymore. I'm not a college student athlete anymore. I no longer know student athletes and I'm thrown in the workforce. Like to me, that's what hit me a little bit harder than stopping, the 3 year mark.
Right. So definitely the leaving of the friends and the people around you.
Yeah.
You still had the roommates there and they still got to talk about the practices. You still had the intel.
Yeah, I
of
felt like I was
what's-
still a part of it. I
without
still got
having
the
to
tea.
put in the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was fun. It's like almost better at that point, right? So, what's your favorite part about life on the other side of sports?
Dry hair.
Dry hair.
I remember that being the best thing when I did decide to stop. I'm like, my hair's not always soaking wet, and this is amazing. Dry hair by far.
Dry hair, not dry skin.
Yes, moisturized
Yeah.
skin, dry hair.
Well, I know that we're always grateful for our experience as a student
Yeah.
athlete. I think it's taught us so much that we really, truly wouldn't be who we are if it wasn't for our sport. I
Totally.
still even introduce myself as I used to swim. I was a swimmer. You can always use the past tense. I still think it has a lot of credence.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it translates so well into the workforce. Like I work with many student athletes and you can tell the grind, the dedication when they say they're going to get it to you by a deadline, they do, right? Like it all totally translates. I think when you're first transitioning, you're like, how does any of this make sense, match
Right.
up? Like no one understands me. And then once you're actually in it, you've landed a job, like you can tell and you get so much recognition and reward. They're like, wow, you're so fast. You're so efficient, right? You're always punctual. You follow, you did what you said you were going to do, and setting goals professionally, right? And then you always want to chase them and go after them. Like, I think it's hard to see it when you're in it. But if you give it enough time and you wait, it eventually, you feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, so I want to end with one question. I know I believe you said you had some for me.
Yes.
We can end on those.
Perfect.
And yeah, I want to end with at least 3 takeaways and 3 action items for anybody that listens.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
So since it's your first episode, of course,
Okay.
and being in the recruitment space, on my way over, I'm like, I need to ask her some questions. Like, this is really cool that you're putting this together. It's going to be such a great resource. So my first question for you is, how did you even come up with this idea?
So,
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea. But how did, like, what's the story behind Lifeletics?
This came about in April of 2021. One of my friends who I met at this Jesse Itzler camp, he's like, what is it that you want to do? And what kind of business? Have you ever thought of starting a business? And I'm like, well, yeah. I had thought about a few other things. I texted him, just kind of spewing off ideas. I'm like, I've always wanted to help student athletes with the transition from athletics to real life. I think there's a huge disconnect there. And I was like, that's the one that's stuck out of maybe the 3 ideas I gave him.
Yeah.
And that's the one where my heart landed, and I was like, this has to happen. I started brainstorming all different ways to go about it.
Yeah.
Had like mental breakdowns because I'm like, this isn't happening. There's nothing going on with it. Why, why haven't I done anything towards it? So as far as the name, I probably have a piece of paper around here in my house somewhere that has a bunch of different ideas and names. And then that one just happened.
It just stuck. It just felt right.
That one was it. So Lifeletics was born April of last year. I do have a picture of myself when I created the LLC as if I was like about to just start up this whole big thing. And I'm still so excited about it, as excited as I was in April of 2021.
I love that. I'm glad I asked.
I can't wait to see where it goes.
Sure.
And see how hopefully everybody gets a lot of value from it.
Oh, I think they will.
I hope so.
Do you think, or did you have a hard time transitioning from athletics to real life?
My hardest part of the transition, so I had a job coming out of college, which I was very grateful for.
It took pressure off.
Yeah, it definitely took the pressure off of graduating. I knew at that point, I was like, I just need to graduate on time. Right? I need to get out of here. I was an intern with this specific pharmaceutical company. They decided to work with my schedule. I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what it is? You know what the schedule is you're about to work with?
Like, are you sure?
You're positive, right? Okay, here we go. So I went in there maybe like 10 hours a week. I'd do like practice. I'd drive to Fort Lauderdale. I'd go to work in between practice. I'd come out
Crazy.
And then come back. I'd be like the only one in the locker room getting dressed in professional clothes with dripping wet hair.
Wet hair.
So my hardest part after that would be sedentary and not knowing how to work out.
Yeah.
Right? For the longest time, we ate whatever we wanted because we were burning an insane amount of calories. So it's very easy to almost like put on weight again.
Oh, yeah.
Very easy. Your body kind of just has this bounce back that's like, whoa, what's happening? I was burning 2,000 calories a day and now I'm burning like 200.
Yep.
And I'm still eating the same amount, which is never good. So that was probably the hardest part. And once I was able to, figure out a specific routine, whereas I would go for a run in the mornings, I'd have to do it always before work. And then from there, I signed up for this half Ironman and just started committing to that every single day. I would definitely recommend anybody who is getting out of sports to sign up for a race. Whether it's a Tough Mudder, Spartan race, triathlon, maybe something in like a local league in the same sport you were just in. I know a lot of people get burned out. I never wanted to swim after I got out of swimming. Yeah. So
but like a kickball league, something
to keep you excited about being active.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my hardest part, is to be all of a sudden in just sedentariness, sitting in an office chair for 8 hours a day. And that's about it.
I love it. We'll end on one last question. what are you most excited to share with everyone about Lifeletics?
My dream is for student athletes right now, juniors, seniors, to feel very excited about life after sports. To literally feel empowered to take it on and feel prepared.
Yeah.
So if I can get that, I've succeeded. That's all I need. I want to impact as many people as I can. And I'm excited. I'm so excited.
Well, you're going to kill it. I'm so excited and I'm so proud of you.
Thanks.
Your biggest cheerleader, cheering from afar. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Now
I'm
I do
excited.
have to make 3 action items for all of our people. What are they?
Oh, I have to decide.
This is for you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Number 1, write a list of things you like. It doesn't have to be a pretty list. It doesn't have to be organized, but like write a list of things that you like, whether it's sales, whatever it might be. Write it down of things that you like or even think you might be interested in.
Okay.
I'd say that needs to be number 1.
Write a list.
Number 2, have a resume. You never know who you're going to meet out and about, or, you know, I think the universe has a really amazing way of putting the people you need right in front of you at a specific time.
Yeah.
You want to have that resume beautiful, ready to send. So have your resume. Look online at samples, look at YouTube videos, download Canva, use some of their templates. So many resources exist. You should have a resume, even if you don't have experience. And then 3, make a LinkedIn profile.
LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And on your LinkedIn profile, if you don't have, even if you do have experience or don't, you can put your name, put your title, student athlete. There are specific companies that truly, I don't want to say target, but really, really try to get student athletes a part of their organization. So advertising yourself that you are a student athlete just by having your name, right? So create the LinkedIn profile, have a picture, right? Fill it out with what you do, because people really utilize it to headhunt and find talent.
Cool. I love it.
So that would be my 3.
Alrighty. And where can people find you?
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. You have it here, folks. Well, thank you all for joining.
Yes.
And I hope everybody got a little bit of value out of this. And I hope that everybody feels empowered to take on the sport of life.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.